Alrighty, it's time for round 3. Here we are with the Wind set review. Coming up first, we have Brother rocking his nasty guitar over here. Look how cool he looks. Mobius 10, 4-drop 8k. If you control Riku, he gains 2000 power. Trivially easy with the Riku backup. He enters the field, activate all the category 10 characters you control. So how much does any given Wind deck want, say, a 2CP 10k? Probably not too bad. Like, all 10 characters you control, it probably represents, what, at least Buddy, Riku, maybe like a Waka or a Kimari backup or something. So you're gonna get like 3 backups back. Like on a good day. He's a 1CP 10k at that point. Like, that's fine, but it's not amazing. The name clash is really bad. Brother is very good in 10 decks because he searches out a lot of the reasons to be playing 10. It's a neat card, just one that I don't really think has much of a future. Edge. This is the first of our Wind Legends, and it's a very weird one. This one doesn't fit a lot of the traditional spaces. So first off, Prince and Ninja, very searchable card. 3CP, category 4, 7k, all fine. He's on curve. Category 4 is fantastic. When he enters the field, choose one of the 3, but if he was cast, you get all 3 of the 3. So you either get to choose a forward, give it 2000 power until the end of the turn. You get to remove 2 cards from your opponent's break zone from the game, or you get to give Edge haste. And again, you get all 3 if Edge was cast. You also can pay 2 and a crystal to play Edge for free from the break zone onto the field. So I went a lot of directions in this card. First I read it and was really underwhelmed. Then I thought, it's actually not bad. Like with Cecil on field, you can kind of give Rydia 2 free counters every turn for 2 CP. Like, the effects are fine. He comes in active, so we can immediately attack. There's no restriction. If you have 8 million crystals and you can keep getting him off the field, you can keep casting him. And then I saw he was a legend, and I thought he was horrible. And I'm like, well, this is the legend of the set. I don't really think he does enough. Like, these are, like, solid effects, but none of them is amazing. Like, Typhon didn't see a lot of play for the remove 2. A 9k haste is, like, fine. He's like a pseudo combat trick during the combat phase, which isn't bad, but you can't use him on your opponent's turn, so he doesn't like get things out of the way of dying. And now I'm kind of like in between. He's good, I just don't know what plays him. I've been working a lot on Rydia, given that that's been probably the deck I've spent the most time with other than Earthwind. And he's good in there, but he's off color, so you're not ever going to cast him. And he really wants you to be playing the Crystal Cecil, but the Wind Cecil just is a lot better immediately most of the time. So this card's in this weird limbo where it's good, but I don't know how good it is. I don't see myself making room for him very often, but there's nothing wrong with the card. It's a lot of utility packed in one space. So, the very strange card. It's fun to see a card with this much text and just kind of say, well, every effect is only okay, so how good is the card really? Botanist. This is another one of our Category 14 standard unit backups. 3 cost when it enters the field. You can remove a backup without multiplayable. When you do, play a backup from your hand onto the field. You do not get that backup's auto ability. I've read a lot on this card. The most common sentiment I've seen is, well, what does this actually do? And the problem is, not a lot. Like, there's a couple of interesting backups that are high cost, but all of them you want their entry effects. So the only one that, like, really, really screams, like, this is why you play this card, is Une. But Botanist only gives you a 1 CP discount on Une. And if Une cost 5, she's probably still too expensive to really play. Not to mention like how conditional this is, and like maybe in a couple sets we get like a 9 CP backup that just like does everything for everyone. But like the only other thing that this does is like it lets you cheat in a backup that like is off color without having to draw the CP for it. Is that a reason to play the card? Probably not. This is just going to be pack fodder. It's a common that makes you think, which is probably better than most commons. I'd be curious if this was 2 CP, like, because then maybe you get to the point where it's worth it. Like, that 1 CP really does make such a big difference. Ghost. Ghost enters the field, choose a forward, deal it 3,000 damage, so kind of continuing Wynn's thing of small ping. Wind and tap, remove it from the game. Choose a monster, and like it gets the lightning special, the Switch Kamada. So there's a lot of good monsters for this. This can protect your Atomos from dying. It can allow you to flicker Typhon, so Typhon enters during the end phase, which is really good. Ask anybody that's played against lightning how good it is to have unconditional removal tied to an end phase trigger. However, how often are we going to make room for this? And there's good cards. Like I said, Cerberus, you could like flicker to draw a card. Like I feel like you have to take advantage of both the enter the field effect and the removal effect. And I don't know how many decks are going to do that. Maybe in like a Wind Lightning, you could play a Thunder Drake, attack with it, and then flicker it to kill something else. But very weird card. Very interesting one. I'm curious to see if this does see play, because it very easily could. Genova Dreamweavers. I've not seen a lot of hype for this card. I think this thing is busted. So 2 CP, Category 7, Job Genova. None of that matters. It's a monster that cannot be chosen by opponent summons, which is huge. Almost all of the best monster removal is due to summons. This is protected from your opponent's Alexanders, from their Fenrir's. All those things that would remove it. And if you animate it into being a forward, it still can't be chosen. They can't Bahamut this. They can't. Think of 13 and have 13's main removal is all summon based, right? So then you can pay 1 wind until the end of the turn. Genova Dreamweaver becomes a forward 7,000 power. And when it attacks, you can remove a copy of itself from your deck, from the game, and deal 7,000 to all the forwards your opponent controls. So you get a 7k cleave for 1 CP effectively on a forward that can't be chosen. I don't know that 13 can exist with this card. This solves all of Wynn's 13 issues by itself. The only 13 card that sticks around on this is Hope. 7k is actually like just enough. And it's cheap. Mono Wind did not have cheap answers to 13. This is a 2 CP forward that just sits there. When you need it to, you pay 1 for a 7k cleave. 1 CP, attack, 7k cleave. You only get it twice over the course of the game. There's the other Genova Dreamweavers become bricks. None of that matters. In the matchups, this is good. This is like Galuf good against 13. Except I think it's better than Galuf. I can't believe they printed this card. This is, to me, almost the best board wipe that Wynn could have asked for. Stiltskin, 2 CP, Moogle, category FFCC, all very relevant. If you control Chilinka and Yuri, they both gain 2,000 power. So this makes most of them into about a 9k. The really good Yuri becomes a 10k. I think this is really interesting given the Yuri and Chilinkas from the set. Unfortunately, Stiltskin is a very hotly contested name. The 3-drop that searches a 1-drop is very good. So, do I think this will see play in FFCC forward-based decks? Probably. It's just so easy to line it up now. Do I think it's going to be an all-star in that deck? Do I think it's going to replace the other Stiltskin? Very rarely. Chilinka. Okay, so there's both a Chilinka and a Yuri with this first effect. So 3 CP, 7k. When Chilinka enters the field, you can discard a card, search for a Yuri of 4 or less, and play it onto the field. And they both have a bonus effect when they're in a party, so Chilinka protects the party from damage. She's kind of like a white mage for the party. So, 5 CP poop 2 forwards onto the field is very good. And there are good Yuris and good Shalinkas, as it turns out. Shalinka gets a better target, probably, because you can get Yuri, the untargetable Yuri, that also activates 2 forward, or 2 category FFCC cards. And you end up being able to have this like untargetable forward that like keeps reactivating things, and you can play her off 3 backups and then do that. You end up with like 2 backups active again. Very, very strong card to do. You can go for like the light Yuri. There's a lot of cards. Do I think she's going to see a lot of play outside of limited? I don't think so, but it is a good card and a good effect, right? So could be. Chocobo. This is everybody's favorite full art of the set. 2CP standard unit. Category special. When Chocobo enters the field, choose a forward other than Job Chocobo. Basically, this Chocobo gets a rider and becomes a 9k forward. 2CP 9k is actually really good, and that condition is not hard to meet. Just have another forward stick around for a while. Is it amazing? No. It's not going to redefine anything. It is going to make Chocobos as a deck better, but that deck hasn't been good since Stern got banned. This wouldn't be good even with Stern being around, probably. Maybe it would. It's still probably one of the better Chocobos, but until then, it's just going to be draft fodder. But I would not be shocked this is actually like a $25 full art, just given how cute it is. Oh, in awe of the size of this lad. What an absolute unit. This is 8CP Fat Chocobo, Category 7. Really simple effect. 8k to all the forwards opponent controls. There are no restrictions on that. You just get to do it. You can do it on your opponent's turn, in their combat phase, if they attempt to pass. And he gets cheaper for every 3 wind characters you control. How many is that realistically? He will usually probably cost 7 or 6 probably. I could see you having like a full line of backups and like a monster. I've seen a lot of like differing opinions on this card. People saying it's garbage, people saying it's incredible. There is something to be said for a lot of the wind combo decks right now. Don't want to play cards like this because they're bricks. They want to just gamble that 13 will not be a problem for them. But this does answer 13, and it answers 13 in a way that 13 hasn't had to deal with yet, which is you can do something like they go first. Whoa, shoot. They go first. They play their hand down. You go to 7 in hand. Play a backup. You have 5 in hand. They play lightning, go to combat. They have 2 cards in hand, and then you Fat Chocobo them. You pitch your entire hand, go down to 1 backups, but they have 2 cards in hand and you have a backup. And I think you win from that position a lot of the time against 13. Maybe I'm wrong, but if they don't get the draw triggers off of lightning to refresh their hand, they're in a world of hurt. The other thing I think people don't realize with this, I think this is now the top end for Rydia. I know a lot of people think that Rydia is kind of at her best when she's casting like 3 or 4 cost summons, mostly because Amaterasu and Mist Dragon are so good. But thanks to Cecil, turbocharging Rydia is not difficult anymore. You can get Rydia to 6, 8, 10 counters so easily now. And being able to cast this for free is something Rydia's always wanted. Rydia actually wanted to play Heka even last set to survive against 13, but couldn't because Heka would actually kill the Rydia that cast it. Fat Chocobo avoids all of that. And for that, I think this card is really, really interesting. I think it will see a lot of competitive play for that reason. Nash, 2CP, Job Archer, Crystal Chronicles. When he enters the field, you can break a 5-cost backup if you've cast 3 or more cards this turn. That is very good. Breaking a Tyro for nothing is a nice effect. And then also you can pay 2 and 2 and tap and break to break a backup. This is also good. Think of a card like Princess Sarah in the old Warrior of Light decks and how pivotal that was, or something like a Class Moogle, right? There's definitely a world where this card ends up saving you, and it's searchable, so I don't see why this doesn't become a one-of in a lot of lists. Very, very interesting card. Number 128, zero cost action ability to deal 7,000 to all the forwards opponent controls. Cannot be reduced, and you can only do this if number 128 has received 4,000 damage or more, and only once per turn. And then also as a special that does 7,000 to all the forwards opponent controls. So this is a really interesting card. The biggest question is, how are we going to get the damage onto 128 outside of fire? Fire, obviously, you can do something like Mont Blanc your own 128. You can Brynhildr it. You can use the new Ifrit on it. And in those situations, it kind of like takes the damage you're hitting it with and then amplifies it and spreads it, which is really good. Outside of that exact situation, I don't know where you're getting that damage from, though. 7K is a little awkward, too. And 4K is also awkward. If it's 3K, there's a lot of cards that can... You could just play Ghost, ping your own 128, and get a 7K cleave. You could play Ritz and get a cleave, but without that, I don't know where we're getting the 4K ping on. It's not a bad card. It's just a very weird one, and doesn't do anything that Wind has tried to do before. So unless this ends up in a Fire Wind list, I don't know where this is going to end up seeing play. But it is good. No-No. So when No-No enters the field, activate all the Wind characters you control. This is not a new effect. We've had this on multiple Bartz's over the years, but there is an EX 4-cost backup Bartz that activates all the characters you control and nothing else. So why are we playing this No-No when there's an extra restriction? Well, at the end of each of your turns, you get to activate a forward. So of the forwards you would want to do here, so you need a Wind deck for No-No to be good, and you need to want to activate a forward. So that is a free Bismarck. If anybody is trying to make Fat Chocobo work in the Year of Our Lord 2023, that's actually really good, because you can kind of reactivate Fat Chocobo every turn, but you also kind of want No-No to come down when you have 2 backups. I don't know how many more backups you're really playing off Fat Chocobo at that point. Again, it's an extra free Bismarck ping, which is never bad. It will allow you to make your Typhon a blocker or something, which is not bad. It's not a bad card, I just think it's a little too specific between needing to activate a forward and you have to be playing effectively a mono Wind deck. It might see play somewhere, but I think it's going to be very rare, and there's going to be a very specific reason this card shows up if it does. Prompto. So Prompto is a 2CP backup job retainer, which is important. Noctis can search backups. We wanted it to search not card name Prompto, because that's the best retainer, but you take what you can get. When Prompto is put from the field into the break zone, draw a card. Love to see that, especially on a card that can break itself, which Prompto can do. Wind, tap, choose a forward, damage dealt to it next is reduced by 5,000 instead. So you kind of get to refund the little bit of CP with it, draw a card. This card is just good. It gives you an option for your Noctis, where you can go like Noctis with 3 of this Prompto, 3 Ignis, and 3 Gladio instead of the other Prompto if you wanted to. I don't know if that's going to be good or not, but it is an option, right? So it's definitely interesting. It's something I'll have to experiment with, but it's not a bad card. Beldat. So this is one of, I think, the most interesting cards in this set for a lot of reasons, and I think a lot of decks will play this for different reasons too. So Warp 2 for 1 Wind. When a Warp counter is removed from Beldat, your opponent puts the top 2 cards of their deck into the break zone. I don't really care for this effect. I know that's a very weird thing to say, like, oh, well, why does it really matter? There's like... The only cards that matter in your deck are the last ones. Sure, there are going to be times where you mill your opponent, and they need exactly 1 card to win the game. They need to get their their lightning starter, and if they draw it, they win, and you mill it, and the game is over because you milled their lightning. But until then, you're not doing that. With all the recursion in the game right now, you're kind of giving them access to the top 4 cards of their deck. Like, the mill on Axis, in my opinion, is a +3. So you're kind of almost plussing your opponent, which I don't really like. But you're milling 4 cards, so if you're going for a mill condition, it's actually a ton for this like uninteractable, untargetable, untouchable thing. And then, so on top of that, the thing about mill is that if you're playing a glacially slow mill deck, you only need to beat your opponent by 1 card. And Beldat, probably if you've activated this card, you will win the mill war. She has a second effect where when she enters the field, this is by any means, so she can be warped, she can just be cast. Choose a 4 in your opponent's break zone, remove it from the game. You can cast it at any time you could normally cast it. This is really good, but really hard to make work. So she can't fit in just a mono wind deck. You have to be playing either consistent access to a Cosmos, or you have to be playing something like a Tyro, right? But there's a lot of utility here. Even in like pre-release, I was stole my opponent's Xenos. If like light and dark cards come back into favor, she gets a lot better. If you can cast the card at all, she's literally free, which is wildly good. She's recurable with the Zera. There's a lot going on with this card. You could like have her mill 2, play Vayne, mill another 2. She comes in, steal a card. Just the only question is how consistently can we cast the card we get from their break zone. I will be experimenting with this card a lot, probably both in mill and in like Earth Wind combo decks. But I'm not going to give a definitive answer on how good she is until I get to that point. So stay tuned on that one. The Goddess, super cool art. I love this art. 7 costs, 9k. Category Mobius and 6. Job Warring Triad. And Goddess has 3 effects. When she enters the field, she puts a Doom counter on every forward your opponent controls. When she enters the field, she creates a delayed auto that just breaks every forward your opponent controls. At the end of their turn, and at the end of each of your turns, you get to remove your opponent's break zone from the game. All of these effects are good, but they're strange. So we'll start with the easy one. Removing all the cards in your opponent's break zone from the game is unequivocally good. This is a great speed for it. This is a point where your opponent can't interact with it. They're just going to lose their break zone as long as she's on field. This would be very good in any like deck that was struggling with mono water, for instance, right? The other 2 effects are where this gets weird. Mono Wind has a board wipe, but it requires you to be able to combo off, which usually it can't do until turn 3 or 4, depending on what your build is, what you're trying to do. And it's always wanted the ability to wipe board turn 1 or turn 2 if possible, right? Like, thinking of a card like Matoya. If Matoya was a wind card, it would be in every single wind deck ever. The Goddess kind of gives Wind that option, right? It allows them to say, hey, your life ends 1 turn from now. The problem is your opponent knows everything they have is going to break. And that means they're going to get reckless, and you have to be able to deal with the fact that they're going to try to run your ass down. And I don't know what the, like, if you're dying already, she's not helping you. If you're dead next turn, the Goddess does nothing. She's a 9k vanilla for 7 CP. She's like, help is on the way, but you gotta hold out a turn. And thinking of cards like Garda, like which granted Garda had a warp 5, dear lord. But Garda, by the time it ever came in, it was too late. And I think there's a similar issue with a lot of the removal cards that are warped. So where does Goddess fit in? I don't know. I would rather run Fat Chocobo for just how fast it is. And sure, it doesn't leave a body behind. But the body isn't what makes the board wipe necessary. It's that you clear the field. The body is just a nice bonus. Like, this isn't going to help against 13. If you're dying to 13, say they go Hope Vanille, are you really going to pitch your whole hand for the Goddess and then have them attack Hope? Hope's a 9k. Then attack Vanille. Vanille's a 9k. Then attack Lightning. Lightning's a 10k. And you take a point of damage. And they've drawn 2 cards. And they keep the Lightning around next turn. At no point could you block that and keep your Goddess on field. Like, something's got to give there, right? I don't know. It makes her really hard to evaluate because she doesn't do anything Wind has been trying to do. She does things Wind has wanted to do, but she does them in an awkward and slow way. That makes me think I would probably rather just run the 7 Euphies and just pray. Yeah, it's definitely worthy of legend status. She really makes you think, but she makes you think, can I survive for a turn, or do I need that board wipe now? And I think usually if you need this type of effect, you can't even wait a turn. Like, the game is over if you wait the turn. So... Melfi, 3CP, 7k. When she enters the field, search for a Sonin. There's 2 Sonins. There is an Earth Lightning, and then there's a new Earth one. You probably have to just search the Earth one in this set. I can't imagine there's like a Wind, Earth, Lightning brew hanging around. Maybe there is, but I don't imagine there would be. Still, a 1CP, 7k, and then Sonin's actually not bad. Do I think it'll see constructed play? Probably not. You can also tap her to break a 5 or more forward. Not every deck plays expensive forwards, but this is, 1 CP tap break to break a 5 cost is clearly good. I don't imagine she'll see a lot of constructed play, but if she does, it'll be because of the Sonin in Earth and not because of her own merits. Carpenter, I've seen a little bit of buzz for this one of this cycle in particular just because it does, like, Wind wants to cast and get backups down quickly. So you can go Chocobo Sam, Fat Chocobo, Chocolate, free cast Carpenter, 4 backups. Only spending 9 CP, which is a really good rate. But is that enough? I don't think so. I think there's just higher action backups. Like, even with Althea banned, I would still want to have, like, a Norstall and Fiona on field, right? Or, like, search something with, like, a Sid Palandina, or something like a Fiona on field. There's just a lot of options that just, like, Carpenter doesn't really open. And this card, I think, only gets really good with, like, Bismarck. I think it's a little too specific, and I would rather just play a better card than this. Wind is just not spoiled for good backups, unlike Earth or Ice. So here's Yuri. Yuri is very similar to the Chelinka with the first effect. The second effect is that he gets to break a forward of cost 4 or more, or he gets to activate all the characters you control. Yuri is a little less good on what targets to get. The notable ones are, actually all of these are good cards, but you can get the Opus 7 Legend. If they both stick around, you can kind of break 2 forwards or reactivate both of them. One that people have mentioned is Chelinka. You can give any forward the ability to attack twice and pull that straight out of the deck. It's not bad. You get a discount on the Chelinka, and the only thing is you have to, like, time that weirdly, which I'm never a huge fan of. It's why I don't really love this Chelinka to begin with. Admittedly, I don't even think this Chelinka is a bad option either. Like, all of these are good cards. And all of the effects are actually good. Breaking a forward is really good. Activating all the characters you control is obviously very strong. So there's definitely, like, something there. Is it tier 1? I don't think Yuri Chelinka is tier 1. Is it playable? Could you do well at locals with it? Is it a good budget deck? Maybe. Yuffie. 2CP Ninja, Cat 7. When Yuffie enters the field, put 2 Shuriken counters on Yuffie. I need to check real quick because I don't know this off the top of my head. Does Edge let you pull them from anywhere? No, Edge requires you to pull them from himself. So the only benefit to extra Shuriken counters if Yuffie dies before they're spent is Cisne. But when Yuffie attacks, you can remove a Shuriken counter and do 8k. 8k for a 2CP forward is actually a lot. I think that objectively, this is the best Yuffie that isn't the legend. There is a big but there, though, and that happens to be, if we go into Yuffie, because if you're playing the Yuffie legend, you need at least one other Yuffie, preferably one that's recurable with Azura. So because we have to recur it with Azura, we rule out the starter Yuffie and the Opus 1 Yuffie rare. Most of the time people have been opting for the Opus 1 common, and the reason why is because it is searchable with Stiltskin. You could play a 3-cost backup that searches this, discard it to the break zone, it's always on hand to get back with Azura later. Yuffie is not searchable with that. You have to use Mina exactly to get her. But in the situation you have to hard cast a Yuffie, this one does nothing. This one actually is a threat on field that your opponent probably wants to answer. Take your pick. Which one's more important? Is it searching it so that you can more consistently get the Yuffie special off, or is it better to have a card you would actually cast in an emergency? I have no idea. Ritz. When Ritz enters the field, choose a forward opponent controls, deal it 3,000 damage. It's not a lot, but it is a 1-drop, 3k. When it's put from the field into the break zone this turn, draw a card. So that's the really interesting thing. She kind of turns into a Brynhildr, but you're not killing anything with just 3k. You got to combo this with something. Now, notably, the card doesn't have to go to the break zone from damage. You can break it any way you want. In Fire, this would pair very well with something like a Goblin or any other cheap source of ping. You could go like Ritz Brynhildr, kill an 8k, draw 2 cards would be really nice. Being a 1 CP body means she's searchable with Stiltskin. I dismissed this card when I first read it. She's not an all-star. She's not crazy. She's not amazing. She's interesting, though. She has potential, and I think she may find a home eventually inside of a constructed deck. I do think there is potential. There's also, fun fact, another 1 CP forward with an EX burst that does 6k if you control a Ritz. There's even a world where you go Ritz Shara, 9k to something, draw a card. That's not bad. It really is not bad. So, yeah, there's genuine potential for this card. And Dragoon, again, I'm just going to reiterate, card is good, get yourself your cheap foil, but I am still mad they reprinted these rather than just designing new ones. There were so many things they could have designed instead rather than just these boring, vanilla, white bread, terrible standard unit backups from Opus 15 that I hate seeing them every time they're in a deck list, even if I know why they are the most commonly played standard unit backups. And that'll do it for Wind. Thanks for watching. I'll see y'all in Earth next.